and I welcome you all to the virtual edition of Ek Mulakat. During the pandemic, the Prabha Khaitan Foundation has ensured that patrons catch up with their favorite sessions and keep their spirits high. Attendees can now tune in from the safety of their homes as we connect virtually with nearly 35 cities in India and overseas. The foundation endeavors to preserve and showcase our rich cultural legacy through various initiatives to further its causes. Ek Mulakat is a such exclusive initiative that allows patrons to rendezvous with legends and stalwarts from the world of various creative fields and engage in an enriching conversation. The guest for the evening is Mallika Sarabhai, who needs no introduction. Mallika Sarabhai has been one of India's leading choreographer and dancer for over 4 decades. In constant demand of soloists and with her own dance company, Darpana, she has been creating and performing both classical and contemporary works. She first came to international notice when she played the role of Draupadi in Peter Brook's The Mahabharata. Always an activist for societal education and women's empowerment, Mallika began using her work for social change at a young age as she wanted to change the society for the better. In conversation with her is Sunitha Shekhawat, who's synonymous with modernizing the craft of Meenakari while retailing its traditional essence. She is also our Ehsaas woman from Jaipur. Without wasting much time, I welcome both and request Sunitha ji to start the conversation. Sit back and relax and enjoy the conversation.
Welcome, Mallika ji. It's been an honor and pleasure to share the same, I can't say dais, but the same platform as yours. And you will not believe, last 6-7 days, since the time I was told to host whatever the evening with you, I've been constantly watching all your videos and whatever information I could, grab from whichever platform. And to be very honest, I felt like as if I'm watching some sort of a movie, or like I'm going through a whole process of knowing a person so close. I mean, I was really impressed. Thank you so much for being with us today. And in your honor today, I chose 2 beautiful, I can say, shairi for you, which I think will resonate with your personality so very well. So here is for you, for a lady who we all admire so much. मंजिलें बड़ी जिद्दी होती हैं, हासिल कहाँ नसीब से होती हैं, मगर वहाँ तूफान भी हार जाते हैं जहाँ कश्तियां जिद पर होती हैं. So another one for you. राह चलते नहीं मिला हमको फन ए शायरी, कई रातें गिरवी रखी हैं हमने इस हुनर के लिए. Thank you so much, Mallika ji. And taking the conversation forward, as Ruhi has mentioned, I would like to know a little bit more about your journey with Peter Brook. It was a journey of almost 5 years. Can you just throw some light and, just enhance our knowledge a little bit more about this?
Draupadi has been a favorite character of mine since I was a very little girl. Because to me, I found it fascinating that she fit nobody's definition of what a pavitra wife should be, or a daughter should be, or a friend should be. And this always fascinated me. And I grew up seeing versions of the Mahabharata, reading versions of the Mahabharata, reading comics of the Mahabharata, then having my Kuchipudi guru enact it for me. And so I was always very involved with the Mahabharata and with Draupadi. And in early 1984, it started appearing in the Indian newspapers that this extremely famous theatre director called Peter Brook had been working on the Mahabharata and the script for 11 years and was doing an international production. He had people from over 20 countries, but he felt that there were 2 characters in the Mahabharata that were uniquely Indian and couldn't belong to any other culture, and those were Krishna and Draupadi. And that Mrs. Pupul Jaikar, who used to be the advisor of art and culture to the government of India and to Mrs. Gandhi and then later to Rajiv Gandhi, was in charge of organizing auditions for him, and that he and his team were going to be traveling across India looking for these. And I was following in the Times of India and Indian Express. Now they're in Bangalore, they have auditioned so and so and so and so, all the big names of theater and film. And, but no announcement of whom they had chosen. Now I was pregnant and I had extremely bad hepatitis. I was completely bound to my bed. I was completely yellow and I was having a terrible time. And one day I get a telegram from the cultural attaché at the French embassy. Those were the days of telegrams, remember, there was no fax and no email. Saying that, are you in Ahmedabad? Because I want Peter Brook to come to Ahmedabad to meet you. So I was very surprised. Anyway, they arrived the next morning and I spoke to Peter for a little while. I thought they must have come to offer me some faltu role. And then I spoke no French, and I always teased Peter later that he really liked me in my yellow jaundiced state, which was not the way I was during the production. And about half an hour through this conversation with 5 of them, the writer Jean-Claude Carrière was there, the designers were there, the producer was there. He said, I would like you to audition for Draupadi. And it was bizarre because I had never expected it. And I said, but my doctor has just given me permission and I'm leaving for New York in another week. So he said, that's okay, my director is there and he can audition you and then we can fly you to Paris. So I met with his assistant director. They were performing at the Lincoln Center and I auditioned there, and then they wanted me to fly to Paris. So I flew to Paris, and there was a play on in his theater, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, he auditioned me and offered me the role. And it completely threw me because, as I said, I was pregnant with my first child. With my ex-husband, we had just started a publishing company. I was really taking off as a Bharatanatyam soloist and Kuchipudi soloist. And there were these, it's the horns of the dilemma, except both of them are very, very attractive. What do you do? How could I, the basic contract was for 2 years. How could I go with a newborn child into an unknown territory in a language that I didn't know at all, doing professional theater for the first time, being cut off from my sort of network and my family and everybody. And it was a very, very hard decision. But I took it and went when my son was 5 weeks old. And it was a hard winter. It was the hardest winter Paris had had. All the pipes burst and I was trying to learn French. And it was a very tough first year. And I didn't fit in many ways because I was the only Indian. I thought I was carrying the nation's cultural heritage on my shoulders, that I had to see that it was interpreted right and not interpreted in an Anglo-Saxon way. And I was the only one who was not a professional actress. I was the only one who didn't speak any French. So there were lots of advantages and disadvantages. Bringing up a child was very difficult. But once the initial pilot runs started, I started feeling that I was bringing something important to the production. And then my sense of lack of self-worth, in some sense, you know, feeling very intimidated by all these very famous actors and actresses from professional theater, started going. And it was towards the end of the first year that I started enjoying myself. And I used to always say to myself that I don't speak enough French to be able to ad-lib if I forget. So Sanskrit mein kuch bhi bol dungi, kya fark padta hai? Nobody will understand anyway. So that's really how it started. But then it became the turning point of where I am today, because it was those 5 years and seeing the effect that my interpretation of Draupadi had on women across the world that pushed me into saying that the arts are my language for change, my language for social change, my language for behavior change, my language to encourage other women to have the courage to take their lives into their own hands. And rather than speak, my performance is what will get them there. So in many senses, it was a pivotal moment that pushed me or propelled me into what my life's work has been.
I'm sure 5 years is a very long time.
Very long time indeed.
Yes, it's a long time. And another, thing which I really wanted to ask you, what was the philosophy behind Shakti, the power of woman, which I think you yourself represent, but
Yeah,
still I would like to know about
and it was my first creation. I have always felt that culturally, because of patriarchy in every country, everything to do with us women is dismissed as weak. So even the words we use, bal, abla, and so on, whether it's in English or it's in Hindi or it's in Gujarati or it's in Marathi, and that very often the way mythology and then history and then current affairs frames a woman is itself so biased that we don't stand a chance. So for instance, even a character like Draupadi is talked of as the wife of the 5 Pandavas, the daughter of Drupada, and so on. She's never herself. And Manusmriti says this, most religious interpretations falsely say this, whether it's Hinduism or whether it's Islam or whether it's Christianity, that a woman has to be a wife or a daughter or a mother to have any hasyat. And this really bothered me because I felt that so much of violence against women, so much of what women did to hold themselves back was because of this. So in Shakti, I tried to interpret these definitions of women and what the women really felt about it and what the women believed about it. So it starts as in a museum, a mannequin is brought in and the catalog is read as daughter of, wife of, mother of, and so on. And the mannequin walks off the dais and starts telling her own story. And by halfway through it, she picks up this catalog, throws it away and says, enough, I'm going to tell my stories. So it was really looking at how language, ritual, religion, all the different festivals we have. The fact that a woman must wear a dog collar called a Mangal Sutra. But if it is such a great idea, why doesn't the man wear it? All these are towards patriarchy. And I wanted to examine this and make women understand that if you want to do it, but know why it is being done to you. And so it was a whole exploration of the idea of how patriarchy uses language and ritual and religion and history and the telling of history to basically dehumanize women and make us into either goddess or whore, which is the way we are still treated, as we can see from the newspapers every day.
So another important question is establishing Darpana and Natrani. So I just want to know, how was your experience working with your mother and how is it different now when she's not around, the legend Mrinalini Sarabhai?
Amma and I had an extraordinary relationship, both personally and professionally. And of course, when I was 12 and 15, we had fights and I had the usual, I'm a young woman and the usual things. But we were extraordinarily close in our thought and in our trust for each other. So when Papa died at the end of 1971, Amma felt that she had lost her purpose in dancing because it was such a close partnership. My mother and father, though one was in science and one was in the arts, they bounced off each other. And I hadn't decided to be a classical dancer. I then went into the IIM and did a PhD. And it was only in the middle of 1976 that I suddenly woke up out of a depression saying, I want to dance. And it was the second innings for my mother, because she was delighted to find a partner again, a spiritual partner, an intellectual partner. And she started composing and choreographing for the two of us. And it was as though she would, I mean, you are people who love literature. It was as though she would begin a sentence and I could end it.
Yes.
And we both trusted each other enough to let go and say, Mallika, it begins like this. And I would say, yes, and you want it to end like this. But intellectually as well, in the concept of our choreography.
That
Amma had,
sorry.
yes, go ahead.
That has sensed in your love for words and diction also, which I'm sure you must have, acquired from your mother. I've seen a lot of her work also. Yeah.
She loved language, and she taught
Yes.
me the love for language and the search for where words come from. And I
But
was having
how many languages do you know, Mallika? How many languages? I'm sure you know a lot of languages.
Well, English, Gujarati, Hindi, and French very well.
Very well.
And
Tamil, I'm sure. Tamil little bit?
well, I sing all the love songs.
Yeah, okay.
In Tamil and Malayalam and Bengali and Marathi, I have enough of a knowledge that if I was thrown into a family that only spoke that language for 2 or 3 weeks, I would speak it very fluently. There is a dam that you have in languages. So for instance, I didn't start arguing with people in French till I had finished the French version of the Mahabharata. So it was obviously in my head, but that, the thing that needs to push you into speaking it. So yeah, those languages. And Amma in Darpana hated the administrative side of work. And I had trained as an administrator manager from IIM. So she was very relieved to give that over to me. And she missed me when I went away to the Mahabharata. I felt very rootless because I had never been away from Amma. I was very much Amma's baby. As a child, I was always called her calf because I used to hide myself in her pallu all the time. But she helped me tremendously during the Peterbrook production, because you must understand, we live in a world of instant everything. In 1984, if I wanted to put a call through to Amma from Paris, it would probably take me 3 days to get a call through. And then if I had to say to her, cyclo-style that material or send me the book, you were talking of 10 days or 2 weeks. So it was a very different understanding of time, but she was always there to find me Iravati Karve's interpretation or so-and-so's interpretation, so that I could argue with Peter Brook and the writer and say, this is not right. So in some senses, I don't feel she's gone. She is in every brick, she is in every room. And I think most of us feel her presence extremely strongly, but in a very nourishing way, not in a way that is a lack, but in a way that is a smile to see what we are doing next.
So nice. So Mallika, I would like to know a little bit more about your love for literature, you as a publisher, because I also have some of your books. Since I'm jewelry, yes, I have that Mepin publication book on the Maharajas.
Okay.
Yes. So I was just looking for some more books. I could find few. One is about Golconda diamonds also.
That's
so
right.
Please tell us some more.
We've also done the arts and crafts of Rajasthan, which has a huge section on jewelry and craft and so on. I have always loved books. As a child, I would much rather curl up in a corner and read than go out and play something or go out and do whatever.
Early things, yeah.
So yeah, exactly. And whenever Amma used to go away on tours, and they were very long tours, she would see to it that my lovely nanny would deliver a new book to me every morning saying, Amma mokliche, meaning Amma from wherever she is in the world has sent you this book. And I remember this from the age of about 5. So books were something that was fun. And as a family of 4, at our dinner table, we used to always play word games, puns and word games and mental Scrabble and all these. So words were a very strong part of my thing. I have also always loved crafts and design. And in 1979, out of the blue, a friend of mine who was a magazine publisher said to me, there is this design magazine called Inside Outside. That is only 2 issues.
We have all the cuttings of those inside, outside when we were building our house. Yes.
So would you like to take it over? And I said, you know, I know nothing about publishing. And he said, yes, but you love design, you love craft, and I think you should take it over. And I was always somebody who took up a new challenge by doing that. And it was through that I met my ex-husband, and we decided that we were fed up of foreigners interpreting Indian art and culture for Indians. And that just because our experts did not write good English didn't mean that their brains should be picked by other people and then say, thank you very much to Hakusha or so-and-so, so-and-so. So we decided that we would go to the source experts and have Indian photographers come up to the level of world photography on books on art and bring up Indian publishing so that we could be the voice of India for Indians and for foreigners rather than foreigners interpreting us, which is a very colonial thing. So that's how Mappin started. It's now into its 400th book.
Yes.
I was actively involved with it till 2000, but then Darpana's work sort of completely took over. So I haven't been, I'm still involved, but not actively at all. But I still revel in the beauty of the books.
So the other day, even before I knew that we are going to be interviewing, I was watching this Dance Unlocked. And I got so inspired, and then I saw all the 24 names of the dancer, and what a beautiful concept, and everything so well put up together. And I love the music also, and the way it elevates the mood, you know, starting from low to high. Although I don't understand music as much as you do,
but you don't need to understand music. You need to
listen. Yes, yes. But it was, Mallika, it was so inspiring. And the spirit of the whole thing, and for a lady of your age and maybe my age to come on terms with the new age. I think this is what we call the new normal, and you did it so beautifully. Please tell us something more about that Dance Unlock.
You know, the artistic director of Darpana is a young man called Yadavan Chandran. And Yadavan and I have now been working together on a lot of creative things for the last 20 years. And he has brought the whole digital age into Darpana in 2001, 2002. We did a lot of television work together using the most popular genres of television to talk about issues that mattered to us. And when the lockdown happened, we thought, you know, in most fields in India, there is such a feeling of competition that people of the same profession rarely get together to do something.
Yeah.
And we felt that for performers, not having an audience was a terrible situation.
Yes.
And like in Darpana, we had, for Natrani, there were no audiences, our students couldn't come in. And we felt, what can we do that lifts the spirit but makes dancers of great repute who might never know each other or have spoken directly to each other come together in a spirit that unlocked.
Yes.
And Yadavan had to work very hard explaining how to shoot it with each of the dancers. They were very good sports, and they would be in touch with Yadavan and say, is this okay, or shall I change the angle? And Yadavan would have to explain, and he'd do little drawings. And then both of us have worked with Tanmay Bose before, and we thought this was such a lovely piece of music. And because of the way it is structured, we could juggle with the edit as we wanted and take. So we took very different types of dancers. But I think I'm glad that what got transmitted to you was the sheer ebullience and the joy and the togetherness. I think the feeling of togetherness was very important. We worked 6 weeks on it, and we were constantly in touch with everybody and saying, yes, but this color doesn't look nice with this color. Maybe we need to juxtapose differently. Maybe we take this. And then we would say, maybe if we have a close-up of the feet, and we would go back to the dancers. And they were amazing spots. They were so into the spirit of it that it was a great experience.
All the bhavs, you know.
Yes.
courage to, I could see that. Very, very nice, very inspiring, Mallika. I watched it, I don't know how many times.
I'm glad.
And then another video which I watched, I think at least 6, 7 times, was Pride of India.
Yes, the
Yes.
film that was made on me.
On you,
Right.
External Ministry Affairs.
Right.
That was again very.
Yeah.
But another very personal question, Mallika. Where do you gather such courage from? Who's your inspiration behind this courage?
You know, more than anything else, I think my inheritance is an inheritance of being the voice of the oppressed and the poor who cannot have a voice. For 4 generations in my family, especially the women, from my great grandmothers on both sides to my aunt Lakshmi, who was in charge of the women's wing of the INA under Subhash Bose, to my paternal aunt Mallika Sarabhai, who dressed as a Pathan and on a horse took families and women to their families during the partition, to my great aunt Anasuya Sarabhai, who started the first textile labor association by bringing Gandhiji in, and Gandhiji's first experiment with satyagrah was when the mill owners and the mill workers fought, and the mill owner's head was my grandfather and the mill worker's head was his sister. The one thing that was dinned into me, not verbally, but just by what people were doing, was that you have to stand up for justice. You are educated, you are privileged, you have had the kind of, you have met people in the world who stand up for something, and you have to stand up. And it's not a question of courage, it's a question of you have to. It's a question of dharma. To me, that is dharma. Not going to a temple and not taking some vow to be so that my husband can live 100 years or whatever. But to me, that is the understanding of my Sanatan Dharma. And of course, I'm frightened. There's no question about it. As a matter of fact, I have created a performance, which is a conversation between Gandhiji and myself about being afraid. And, how do you get that courage? How do you break it? You get it by, I think, thinking of larger causes. And feeling passionately about it, and feeling, I think, that even your small effort can perhaps bring a resonance somewhere, even if the 30 or 40 women listening to this conversation, if something gels and if something changes, if something gives them the courage to be more of who they want to be, who they are meant to be.
But what a deadly gene pool, I would say, from both the sides.
Indeed.
And yes, it is, And another very important aspect of your personality was your performance at your mother's funeral. So I literally had goosebumps, and I can relate so very well, Mallika, with your thought, because I'm also into business for last 25 years. And fortunately, my daughter also works with me. So there were so many things which were so common as a relation, as a mother-daughter relationship. So what a tribute from a daughter. And how could you how could you think of such a performance at such a time where you're so vulnerable? So please tell me your thought behind the whole thing,
My wonderful musicians used to always, when Amma was sick and she had broken her hip and she had her surgery, they would sit around her bed and they would sing her favorite songs.
Okay.
And for the funeral also, they were singing her favorite songs.
I couldn't hear the song. What was it? Because in video, it only shows the pictures. Yeah.
It's a favorite Krishna. My mother was a great Krishna Bhakt.
Yes.
And for her, Krishna was friend, lover, family, somebody to fight with, everything. And there is a very famous Telugu poem called Krishnani Begane Baro, which is Krishna, quickly come to me. And it used to be Amma's favorite, and we have seen Amma do it hundreds of times, and we have filmed her doing it. And my singer, Jayan, started singing that. And an ex-student of mine looked at me and said, but you have to dance.
Oh. So it was instant.
It was instant. It was, I was standing there crying, listening to this song, and it wasn't even thought. It was the obvious thing to do. What other journey could you send Amma off on except her favorite music and the one passion that she lived her life by, which was dance? So it was instantaneous. It wasn't thought of or anything, but it just seemed very right.
So another important thing I want to know, what is the basic difference between your passion and obsession? Because, you know, sometimes when you get too involved with the whole process, you become little obsessive. So in my case also, when you start designing or when you start doing something, you become very obsessive about something. So can you just tell me the difference between being passionate about something and being obsessive? And I want to hear you from of course, from you.
I think I have been very fortunate and having creative partners who stop passion becoming obsessive and who kick me into having that distance, just as I kick them into having that distance. One can be I think one can be obsessive about finding the grains that is going to make your curry, to get the right grain. But once you have got that, the passion has to take over. So in finding research, in finding a story, I might become completely obsessive. But having found the strand, I think I need to let go. And as I said, I have people who kick me in the butt if I don't let go. So,
and who are those people? I would love to know.
Amma was one, but I was talking to you about how Yadavan and I have been working together for 20 years. And I think he's another. He has his own obsessions and I kick him out of those as well. Okay. But I've been very fortunate in my creative partners because...
You chose them, no? I think you chose them.
Yeah, perhaps, or our work chose us.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think if there is insecurity or rivalry, the work suffers, and the work doesn't take on the primary importance, or the communication that we want to do through the work doesn't take on the primary role that it should.
Yeah. And Mallika, what does gender equality or feminism mean to you? Because I've always I was also reading some, very important quote from, I don't remember the name of the author, but it says that feminism to me doesn't mean how you, the way you dress or the way you behave. So tell me the difference between feminism or what does feminism mean to you?
Being a feminist to me is equal to being a humanist. I believe that all genders, all races, all human beings must have the equality that they deserve. An equal playing field, equal opportunity, and not being treated differently because of an accident of birth, whether it is woman or man or a third gender, or whether it is black or white, or whether it is savarna or non-savarna. And it means that each of us has the freedom of choice. I would call you a feminist if you genuinely believed that as a human being, you had every which way the same rights and the same duties, if you like, and did not have to look at a male figure for approval constantly. For me, a lot of very educated, so-called liberated women still have a little switch in their heads, which is that at the end of the day, they still want a pat of approval from husband or father or male boss. And I think till we turn that off, to me, feminism is not real. Feminism is saying, I expect exactly the same treatment as everybody else. And that's why it's like humanism, because I believe the same about race, I believe the same about caste. And I believe that every human being has the right to be treated equally, whether you are born in a palace or whether you are born in a forest. That human beings are not determined by the accident of birth or gender. You might go off for 5 seconds because a battery is being changed, but I can hear you, so ask your question.
Okay, are we ready for the question answer?
That's okay, I'll come back in a second. My audio is on and you will be able to see me in a second, so go ahead, ask your question.
Okay, are we ready for the question answers?
Yes, 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 yes. Go and ask, my video will come on in a second.
Okay. So what are you passionate about apart from dance?
Apart from?
Dance. Your.
Oh my God, life. Life is what I'm really passionate about. I'm passionate about a more just society, about a society where we are not cruel and exploitative of other human beings. To me, that is very important. And I spend a lot of my time thinking about it, writing about it, creating about it, everything. I think that COVID months should have made us realize just how insignificant we are. You know, when I think that one little mosquito came and bit me and I am so miserable for the last 3 weeks and I can't move, it shows one how insignificant some of our concerns are. Some of our concerns about, oh, ye kya kahegi hamare bare mein, wo kya kahegi hamare bare mein, log kya sochenge, it is so irrelevant. And if we can work towards a world where we can actively participate in a search for justice, in starting from our own home, saying, do I treat everybody who works for me the same? And if I don't, I am wrong. Because I don't like being treated differently by anybody, and none of us do. None of us do. Sometimes we have to put up with it. Sometimes we have to tolerate it because of a certain horrible social hierarchy, or because your husband's boss is treating you badly or making a pass at you or whatever. But none of us actually like it. So if we don't like it, why can't we make it better for other people? Why can't we teach our children to be human beings rather than daughter and son? Or हमारी जाति तो है ना, हम तो ये नहीं करते, हम इनको नहीं छूते, हम ये नहीं. Hello? Whose script is it?
Yeah.
And I think my greatest passion, and as I grow older, my greatest passion is, can we not make the world a better place? Can we at least not make our surroundings better places? Can we not sensitize people into what is really true and what really matters, which is the way we treat the earth. The earth has given us such a slap. We think we had conquered nature. I mean, something like COVID has never happened in the history of humanity, where the entire world, no matter whether it's a poor African country or it's a villainous country like India where women are raped every minute, or it's a so-called country of great development like New Zealand or America, we are all felled by the same thing. Each of us has the same kind of body that is responding in the same way. It's dying or it's recovering, and we are all in a state of terror. Are we still sticking to the fact that my bank balance is more important than my ability to be able to hold my child and say, I love you?
It doesn't matter, Mallika, whether you have a carpet or a dari underneath your feet.
Exactly.
It really doesn't matter.
But are we understanding that? Are we willing to change our mentality? Or are we still treating the maid servant as though she is the one who brought it? This is a disease that the airplane traveling class has brought into everybody. And do we realize it? Do we understand that it is our class, whatever that class is, who flies here and there and jets around, that has unleashed it onto the people who probably still are in a Mulakat? No, we don't. We still treat them like the pariahs. The migrants walking on the streets, we still treat them like the pariahs. When they come back to work, are we going to see that they are safe and secure for their own sake? Because none of us is unconnected. As you have seen, I mean, look at President Trump and the fact that 35 people in the White House have suddenly got it because of his carelessness. You know, it doesn't matter whether it's the janitor who's cleaning the rooms or it is the vice president, they've all got it. So are we open enough in our mentality to understand that this has been a wake-up call for us and we need to become humane beings, not only human beings?
Mallika, coming to the current scenario in Bollywood, you have been part of Bollywood for such a long time. What is your take on the current drug abuse on Bollywood?
Listen, there's drug abuse everywhere. Why get after Bollywood? I mean, especially why connected with Sushant Singh's death? And this is a witch hunt. There are only witch hunts going on in this country at the moment. Anybody who questions the government is forced into something or the other, completely unrelated. So these are witch hunts to try and divert our attention from the women like the Hathras victim, or the horrors that are going on in Adivasi belts, or the rapacious taking over of huge tracts of land by the huge industrialists. These are all diversionary. I mean, the economy is a mess. The economy was a mess even before COVID, but we want to divert so we are talking of terrorists. What terrorists? You know, I mean, hello, there are more terrorists out of hunger in our country than there are ever going to be anywhere else. These are diversionary things. Bollywood has as much as the next place. What about all the sadhus who take bhang all the time, openly, as part of their great Sanatan Dharma? Why aren't you going after them? There are hundreds and thousands of them. Why aren't you going after those communities who regularly take it? Why aren't you going after students? No, because it doesn't get you as much publicity. It's not convenient. Going after Ria or going after one of the Bollywood stars is convenient. You go after Deepika and you question her for 8 hours, you get a lot of publicity and the whole country like fools are looking at that, and something completely different is being ruined and abused somewhere else.
So thank you so much, Mallika. I really had a wonderful time talking to you. And over to Pooja now. Pooja, you can take for the questions.
So, good evening, Mallika ji. I have a few questions from the audience.
Go ahead. Why is Pooja's visual frozen?
Does the impact of reading Mahabharata impact as for studying in Sanskrit?
Can't hear you.
Oh, ma'am, does the impact of reading
does the impact of reading the Mahabharata in Sanskrit make a difference? I didn't read it only in Sanskrit. I don't speak Sanskrit, so I sat with people who translated for me.
In any other foreign language has the...
Of course, I think every book that is translated, it depends on the translator, whether they are following word by word or whether it is an understanding of the spirit of that book. And some of the best translations have been where the translator has become part transliterator as well. And I think in recent years, the whole career or the craft of translations has become a very important part of how we understand nuance. And I was reading one of our famous writers the other day. No, I was reading somebody and they were talking about how even though he doesn't speak Finnish, he worked very closely with the translator who was translating his book into Finnish so that he understood when the translator was making a different kind of metaphor, what that metaphor meant in the Finnish language and whether it was the same as what it meant to him in the language in which he had written it. And I think this is a very important part of translation.
Right. So there's another question that, ma'am, how is it a Mangal Sutra is a symbol for degraded as a dog collar.
What is the Mangal Sutra? If the Mangal Sutra was such a great idea, the man would have it as well. You are saying that you need protection from somebody. Why do you need protection? If it's such a great idea, he would do Kadwa Chauth. He doesn't. He would do the Mangal Sutra. He doesn't. All these things are a part of patriarchy. Understand what does the sindoor mean? It's a dog collar, the sindoor also. If it was such a great idea, the man would do it. All the great ideas the men take. And they make us think that they're great ideas and make us do these stupid things. Hello, why? Why should a man, actually a man is much more dependent on his wife, so he should do all the pujas so that she outlives him, because he can't do without her, he'll take a second wife. So why should she be so dependent on him? Please understand that we have some amazing rituals. Do you know that in Sanskrit, there is no subsidiary word for wife? It is like Ardhanarishwara, it is ko sahadharmini and so on. It's always ko. Why do you think in Hinduism, we have goddesses taking possession of gods? We never say Krishna Radha, we say Radhesham, Radha's Sham. We say Lakshmi Kant, Lakshmi's husband. So where did this change? Where did this slip into this patriarchy where we are dog collared? Why should we have to wear signs that show that we belong to a man and the man not do the same? Believe you me, if it was such a great idea, the man would have taken it first. My take on the world.
So true. So there's another question saying, what difference do you find with the enactment or script writing of Mahabharata of your time and present?
Haven't you read that poem? Mehndi chodo, shastra utha lo, ab Govind na aayenge. That is today's Draupadi. Krishna saying, today I saw a cartoon of Gandhiji giving a stick to the girl and saying, protect yourself. That is the Draupadi that we need today. The real Draupadi who stood up, who could stand up and call her husband fools when they were being fools. Not say, मैं तो आपकी पत्नी हूँ, मैं हमेशा आप जहाँ कहेंगे मैं कूद जाऊंगी. आपने अगर अग्नि परीक्षा करनी है तो मैं कर जाऊंगी. Sita was not like that either. We have made Sita like that. Why should Sita have the courage to say, Mother Earth, take me back? This is not my story. Where is that Sita gone? Where is the Siya Ram gone? Sita's Ram. Where is that Sita gone? बावड़ी में बिठा दी उसको. पूरे अयोध्या में सिर्फ सीता की बावड़ी ही मिली. Sita is cook. Why? What is this interpretation of mythology that we have accepted? Which is why so much of my work is in going into mythology, into Sita, into Draupadi, into Sati. Because we have been, for centuries, had wool pulled over our eyes. Go back to the originals, read an original. There are 300 Ramayanas. Why do we take the one Ramayana which makes us jump into the fire? Because it's convenient. Because it's convenient to the people who rule. Because it's convenient to the upper caste. It's convenient to the men. It's very simple. Why don't you go and read? If there are Ramayanas which are so bawdy, where the women who are telling Sita what to do on her first night, it's really like a Punjabi wedding. It's hilarious. But these are all equally valid versions. We have made, you know, Hinduism, Sanatan Dharma does not have one book. We are one of the few philosophies which don't have a book. We don't follow a book. We follow our interpretation of how I can find whatever I call Atma, Paramatma, God, truth. A woman sitting in a village talking to a stone as her Shiva is as valid in Sanatan Dharma as me building a marble temple and going ding dong, ding dong, ding dong and showing off my money. There is no single book, and that is the strength of Hinduism. And yet we are following the Abrahamic religions. We are following Islam and Christianity and Judaism in making Hinduism, reducing Hinduism into yehi rules hai, hum kahenge, wohi karenge, varna aap Hindu nahi hai, chop. Why? And we are all falling into it. We are all following it, and we are teaching it, and we are following it. I'm sorry, this is another thing I feel very passionately about, Sunita.
We have one more question from Kalpana Grover. Kalpana ji, are you there online, please?
Pooja, you can, if you have a question, you can ask.
Kalpana ji,
Kalpana ji, you can ask your question. Online, can you ask your question, please?
Please, please, please.
okay, Pooja ji, you can take the other question from the Q&A box.
What advice do you have for budding classical dancers? Should they be a complete reflection of their gurus or should they have their own style?
First of all, I don't think in the new normal there's much of a scope for classical dance or any kind of arts, because our audiences have gone and we will have to reinvent ourselves. I think you are all very familiar with writing. Don't you think that you need to learn the language as it is before you have the permission, not the permission, but the freedom of changing it? If you are writing bad Hindi or bad Sindhi or bad English because you haven't had the training to tell you what the correct English was, then I think that's wrong. Because you are doing it out of ignorance, not out of a conscious decision. So for instance, in the God of Small Things, when Arundhati does not leave gaps between words, she is doing it consciously, not because her grammar is bad. Similarly, I think in dance, you need to learn a style or two styles before you decide what to do with it. And if you are bringing in your own interpretation, have the courage to say that I trained in this style, but this is my interpretation of it. My problem is when you have a plum and you call it a pineapple. Pooja is having internet issues.
No, not at all. I was just looking at the question answers, that's
Okay.
what. So I actually have a question to ask, and I know that you have a fabulous relationship with your mother, but I've also read that you have a fantastic relationship with your dad, and he is again a pioneer. So would you tell us about that? I have heard it, and I know it's a fabulous story, and I want the audience to hear it.
I always felt as I was growing up that emotionally I was like Amma, but value-wise I understood Papa and shared that with him. Unfortunately, he died when I was 17, and I will never stop feeling cheated about that. But he was a child in himself in so many ways. And he was a very irritating father because he would never help us with homework. And I would go to him with very difficult maths issues, and I had tried them, and he'd say to me, darling, sit down and breathe, take deep breaths. And I would take like 5, 6 breaths, and I'd say, Papa, I still don't know the answer to that question. And he'd say, breathe some more. And then after like 30 breathing sessions, I would be close to tears. And he would say, you know, Malli, if your teacher didn't think you were capable of doing this, she wouldn't have set it for you. So breathe some more. So we used to have these breathing sessions. And even now, when people are very, very tense and stressed, I say to them, breathe. Breathe in and breathe out. But he taught me a lot of things. He taught me, for instance, that nobody can humiliate or insult you unless you give them permission to do so. If you give them the power to do so, it is your choice. And this came out of a child calling me a donkey and my getting very upset by it and telling my father that I'll never go back to that school. And Papa saying, darling, you have to feel sorry for that child because he doesn't understand the difference between a donkey and a little girl. You know the difference, so why are you feeling insulted? But you know, these are little snippets that have always, in many senses, that determine my context. And even today, I remember when I got my first bad review as a dancer. And I was very upset and said, okay, I'm not going to be upset by it. And I cut it out of the newspaper and I made a paper boat of it and I sank it in my bathtub. And even now, and papers always write horrible things about people who speak their mind. In my mind, emotionally, I sink the newspaper. and I sink it as a boat, and it's a great relief. It's a great catharsis. I don't have to do it anymore. I can do it emotionally. But so there were many things like this, and the passion, the complete passion for making the nation a better place that I learned from both my parents. You know, that the most important thing was the most marginalized person and whether that person could lead a life of dignity. And it didn't matter what path you took. He took science, somebody took arts, my brother's taken the environment. It doesn't matter if that is the goal. And you know, ISRO is running a podcast just now about the space mission. And one of the questions they asked me was, as a child, when the first rocket went off in 1962-63, what was my understanding of why it was being sent? Did I think Papa was trying to send a mission to the moon, or you know, or show off to the rest of the world what a great country we're? And I said that, you know, as a child, I knew very clearly that every dream of Papa's about space was about instantly taking technology to the person where there was no technology possible, instantly taking communication where there was no communication possible. How do you educate millions and millions of farmers who are sitting in villages which have no connection to the rest of the country? How can you warn them about the monsoon, for instance? And today, whether it is telemedicine, or this is the fact that you and I are talking to each other on the internet, were the kind of things that he dreamt about. Not going to Mars because it would prove how great Indians were. That was never part of the deal. And so I think a lot of what I try and do, and I'm a much lesser person than he was, a lot of what I try and do is to focus on how he would have reacted, and to try and, in my actions, see how I can take people with me in decision making. And this is something he did. He built organizations and then stepped away from them, saying that, you know, I built the organization and there are competent people to run it. These are all things, and I miss him. I miss him so much. I feel that the next few years, had he been alive, would have been crucial to my becoming. We had so many plans together. My going to the IIM was part of a plan that Papa and I had together, saying that I would do my IIM. And I used to ask him, why did he set up a management institute? And he said, because to manage the public institutions like educational institutions and hospitals, you need trained managers to see that their services go to the last person. And he had promised me that when I finished IIM, he would retire from his space job, and he and I would go into the countryside and see how we could create institutions that brought health and education and dignity to people. And he died the day before I took my IIM entrance exam.
He was a visionary, and we were very lucky to have him, you know, born in Ahmedabad. I think we were really lucky. So, and we're very lucky to have your entire family there. You know, you are inspiration to all of us. So it was an honor and privilege for all of us to have witnessed this enchanting conversation and learn more about many diverse perspectives of Mallika ji's personality. On behalf of Prabha Khaitan Foundation and Ehsaas Women, I would like to thank Mallika Sarabhai for agreeing to be part of our session and for the time. I thank Sunita ji also for making the conversation so engaging. We would also like to extend our thanks to Shri Cement Limited and to the guests who are our never-ending support and have given us the strength to reformat the session to go virtual. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.